The Kittens Joy Stakes is a Grade 3. It's the 11th race on Gulfstream Saturday card. It's running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds. And this is a very interesting race. Excuse me. We'll take a look at the field, and you'll see a couple of Todd Pletchers that we saw at 2, Agate Road and Noted, and they certainly jump off the page. And we just saw First World War on dirt in the Mucho Macho Man. And we've got a couple of other interesting new shooters like Tukeo and Hammerstein, as well as Freedom Principle, and we'll go through all of them. But it's a very interesting field, and I think it's pretty well balanced, probably more so than it looks on paper necessarily. So we'll start with our early pace pressers. Tukeo, he's improved definitely since moving to turf with a nice wire job in the Dania Beach, and he was left on all alone and just softened fractions down to nothing, and was able to take advantage tactically, and he got the job done. His best effort is in his greatest class test yet, and that's always encouraging, though it was a small field, and it was okay. I mean, Agate Road was in it, but I wouldn't consider that to be a really stellar field he ran against. He's got company this time, probably on the front end a little more. You can see a number of pace pressers. I don't know that Quokka will want the lead, but he may try to get it. I think tactically it would be a good place to be in this race. I think he could very well wire this field as we talk about more of the contenders. I think you'll understand why. If we look at Quokka, he got a lousy ride in the Central Park. He had to check in traffic early, but he did re-rally near the turn 6 wide. Logically, he flattened out. But he's sure to get a better ride from Edgar Zayas, I think. But this is a step up in class. I'm not as confident of a move forward from him as I am from others. And if the extent of my interest would probably be underneath in the try of the Super, but I think he might be up against it here. Edgartown really had no excuses in the Dania Beach if you consider he was up near the lead, except maybe you could say it was the first off the bench. But this horse, I don't know, I just haven't overly been impressed with his body of work so far, and his class rating hasn't progressed in 3 starts. So a move forward to me seems unlikely, so I'm going to toss him. Deadpan is... Mark Casse thought enough of this one to run him at 4 different tracks, and he did break his maiden at Keeneland, which isn't easy, so it does hint of some promise. He closed well from the clouds in the optional claimer at Gulfstream at the distance with a career-high 3rd off the layoff, and while he was probably too far back to get the job done, he did show something closing that well. But the concern I have is that it is 3rd off the layoff, and while he has been progressing steadily in those 3 races, the beginning of a new form cycle tells me that possibly there'll be a regression. So he's had some incremental improvement, but there are some mixed signals with him, and I'd consider him to be a use underneath at a price. First World War, I ran a nice Mucho Macho Man on dirt, only to be caught by Otello Laden in our separate posting in the Holy Bowl. We talked about that race, where I think it was a very evenly balanced field, and it really had more to do with tactics in that race than anything else. And the troubling thing with First World War is he seems to get beat at the wire quite a bit. And he is progressing as the class levels rise, and that is ideal for a 3-year-old. And I'll expect he'll run here. He's proven that turf is a good surface for him. But again, it is really troubling the fact that he seems to not be able to get the job done. I think he's a use in this spot. I expect him to be right off of Tukeo early on. And if he's good enough, he perhaps will get the jump on some of the others. But I think underneath is probably more likely with First World War. Freedom Principle, you got to have a leap of faith with this one, I think. He's only had 2 works since the win on all weather in the armed forces in November. So that's kind of troubling. I'd like to see a little more training, particularly for a 3-year-old coming off what is a pretty decent layoff. Flame Away His Sire gets 26% first-time turf, so that's a good sign. But I just want to see some more conditioning. I think he's moving in the right direction. Prior to the layoff, he was. But I need a price on this one. I think it's very possible he could go under, be underneath, and I think he can run a good race, particularly moving to turf. Again, I'm just not sure he's ready to run a really big one, and he'd need one in this field. It is pretty well balanced, and I don't know if he can give that effort that will separate him from the rest of the class. So we'll go to the pressers and look at Hammerstein, and I like this horse. I think that tactically he should be in very good position just off the pace, and he'll likely get the first jump on some of the other more noteworthy contenders. Brian Lynch is on fire at this meet, so we have to take him seriously right off the bat. He got a career high off the bench with a professional maiden score. It was aided tactically by a forward ride from Castellano, who he doesn't have here, but he showed good kick his first time on grass, so I'd expect better here, though he is stepping up in class, but every indication is to me that he should be up for it, and I think you're going to get a price with Hammerstein, and I like him in this spot. Noted is one of the 2 Todd Pletcher entries for Rapoli Stables, and everything about him on paper says that he should be a lock in this race. That tactically, being just off the pace, I think he's demonstrated some ability in the past. But if you take a deeper look at this horse, notice that he's always just up when he wins on the grass, and he seems to be a horse that kind of runs to the level of his competition. But I think he has more talent than that, so that's a little troubling to me. He certainly has nice back class, and but again, he just eked it out against an okay field in the Pulpit coming off the layoff, and it looked like a field he really should have been able to handle better. So this one, progression-wise, is a little questionable, and while I think he should fire off the bench, and he's certainly a win candidate, but I don't think he's a lock for the reasons stated. I think he runs to the level of his competition, and he's likely going to be an underlay in this spot. And I don't know that he has a major advantage class-wise over a lot in this field. You have to use him, and definitely will. And again, tactically, I think he'll be in a good position. But I don't see him as being I could certainly see him getting beat in this spot. Agate Road is the lone closer, which always is a good spot. But wasn't he supposed to win the Dania Beach pretty easily? He didn't, and he got a second. That's true, and he didn't have any pace to run to. Well, that's going to be the same situation here. I think Takayo is once again going to get him the lead by himself, and he will certainly try to slow it down. That has to work against Agate Road. He had a decent Breeders' Cup, but looking at that race, he looks to me more of a grinder, and I don't think that sets up very well for him here. Moreover, I don't see the progression as he hasn't put himself significantly ahead against weaker fields. So he's another one I think is kind of an underlay, and given the shape of this race, what it looks like to me, I think tactically he is at a disadvantage. So to me, Agate Road would be one that you think more about underneath. But, anything's possible with 3-year-olds, and he certainly could take a step forward. But he's had a lot of opportunities to do so, and it really hasn't happened. So that's what I mean about this race being kind of tricky, and I think it's a pretty balanced field. So I don't know that the Rapolis, either Noted or Agate Road, have any tremendous advantage over the rest in this field. So in that respect, I think it's a pretty good betting race. So we'll take a look at our wagering strategy, and we're going to use Takayo, number 3, First World War, number 6, Deadpan and Freedom Principle. I would take your pick, really, from the two of them, whichever is the better price. I think either one of them is possible to run underneath. If I had to choose one of the two, I'd probably take Freedom Principle at this point. I like Hammerstein in this spot. I think he's got a lot going for him here, and he's in a part of a hot barn, and that's always a good thing. And then, of course, we'll use the two Pletchers, Noted and Agate Road, but I'm not as confident, for reasons stated, at either one of them taking this race down. So if we look how we'll bet it, we're going to go win, place, and show across the board on the 1. I think you're going to get a good price. And given his running style, he'll be just off the leaders. And if he takes another jump forward, he could very well win this race. And I think it's entirely possible that he could. We will certainly use Noted as a win candidate here. So we'll key box the 9 with 1, 3, and 8. Trying to get a price underneath with Freedom Principle. And then we'll also key box with the 1, Hammerstein, with the 3, 8, 9. And then we'll box as a saver 4 and 9, Agate Road and Noted. To me, it's more of a saver than it is anything else. We're going to hope for that 1, 9 box. Maybe we do that too, so we can triple up potentially with all our bets. That's one maybe you want to include as well. Now, I'm going to throw a trifecta on here, but I'm not confident for the reasons stated. I think it's just we'll gamble that we can get the 1 home, and if it does happen, we're going to get a really nice payout, particularly if he can catch Takayo at the wire, and then we should get some really nice prices. So we'll go 1 on top with 3, 4, 8, and 9, and then 3, 4, 5, 8, and 9. And again, I'm not sure that that's a bet I really want to make, but if we want to max out our ROI, it might be worth a shot. So I think Noted and Hammerstein, to me, are the 2 prime horses to think about in this race. And for value, and I think you have to have it in this race, I think Hammerstein offers the best potential ROI on this race.